Outside of the construction trades, most of the occupational exposure to asbestos in Mississippi took place in three industries: oil refining, power generation, and shipbuilding. Oil refineries. Petroleum, which is actually the solar energy stored by plants that lived and died over 500 million years ago, is a highly flammable substance, even in its crude form. Fires are a constant danger. Because of this, asbestos insulation was frequently used in structures, on machinery, and in pipe fittings. A great deal of the gear meant to protect oil refinery workers themselves was made from asbestos. Asbestos fabric was not in direct contact with the wearer, but was contained in the lining of such clothing. When this clothing became worn or had a tear, asbestos fibers were released. Oil refineries in Mississippi include Chevron, Ergon, and Southland. Power generation facilities. The Grand Gulf Nuclear Power Plant, Jack Watson Powerhouse, and Gulf Power Plant are all locations that have been identified as locations in which asbestos has been used at some point. Like oil refineries, power plants are job sites at which fire and heat danger is prevalent. Likewise, asbestos insulation is used on pipe fittings, as well as within the structures themselves. A Puerto Rican study presented in 2007 involved the chest x-rays of several hundred power plant workers in that territory. 13% of these x-rays showed significant abnormalities, suggesting asbestos-related illnesses, or at least the preconditions of such diseases. Shipbuilding. Ingalls Shipbuilding and the Naval Station at Pascagoula are maritime facilities at which workers were exposed to asbestos. Recent research at the National Cancer Institute confirms that those in maritime professions run a significantly higher risk of asbestos disease than the population at large. From the 1930s until the late 1970s, asbestos insulation was used throughout the construction of seagoing vessels. Another tragic fact is that the veterans of the U.S. Navy were as likely to be injured by asbestos as they were in the line of duty. Facts and figures. Most of these industries were located in the cities of Biloxi, Greenville, Greenwood, Gulfport, Hattiesburg, and Meridian. Of the 612 victims known to have succumbed to asbestos disease between 1980 and the year 2000, over one-third were from these urbanized areas. Of the two major asbestos diseases, asbestosis and mesothelioma, most victims died from the former, outnumbering victims of the latter by 2 to 1. Mesothelioma is a relatively rare form of cancer caused primarily by exposure to amphibole asbestos. Asbestosis is due largely to exposure to chrysotile asbestos, which was much more commonly used in building materials and fireproofing. Unlike mesothelioma, asbestosis is not always immediately fatal. It is neither malignant nor progressive. As long as the patient is not further exposed to asbestos and not a tobacco user, the progress of the disease can be stopped, meaning that the prognosis for those with asbestosis is diagnosed early on is much better. Mesothelioma is rarely discovered in its initial stages. Part of this is due to this difficulty involving its diagnosis. Its early symptoms are similar to many other respiratory disorders. In addition, mesothelioma tumors grow in a sheet-like manner, not as a lump. This adds to the difficulty of diagnosing this particular form of cancer. There are no cures for asbestosis nor mesothelioma. Patients with the latter have an average survival time of 18 months following the initial diagnosis. Legal resources in Mississippi. A search through the Mississippi Federal District Court cases for asbestos-related personal injury product liability lawsuits brings up an extensive list of nearly 50 recent lawsuits from 2006 and 2007. Garlock Incorporated is listed frequently as a defendant in these cases. Owings, Illinois Incorporated is also listed more than once as a Mississippi asbestos-related litigation defendant. Mississippi is ranked 34 in the U.S. for mesothelioma cases, with a mesothelioma mortality rate of 9.3 per million. Mississippi has a crude mortality rank of 35 in the country. There are a number of asbestos-exposed areas in the state. These include the Gulf Power Plant and Jack Watson Powerhouse in Gulfport, Southland Oil in Lumberton, Chevron, Ingalls Shipbuilding, and the Naval Station in Pascagoula, and the Grand Gulf Nuclear Power Plant in Port Gibson, Southland Oil in Sandersville, and Ergon Refining in Vicksburg are also known asbestos exposure sites. Although these sites are known and the owners have in some cases taken steps to remove the health hazard from the area, if you have worked or frequently visited these sites, you may wish to speak with your physician. It is also important to remember that these are known sites. Mississippi may have other asbestos exposure areas which have not yet been uncovered. A key asbestos case in Mississippi was Harold's Auto Parts Incorporated versus Flour Mangagliardi in the Supreme Court of Mississippi. In this case, 264 plaintiffs filed suit against 137 defendants. The plaintiffs, who were residents of Mississippi and other states, alleged that they were exposed to asbestos products mined, designed, evaluated, produced, packaged, furnished, supplied, and or sold from 1930 to the time of the suit. The court, however, found that the plaintiffs did not provide sufficient information to show that they were affected by the actions of all the defendants. In fact, the asbestos exposure asserted in the complaints occurred over a 75-year span and involved asbestos products associated with 137 manufacturers in approximately 600 workplaces. The court ordered that each plaintiff must file suit in an appropriate court of venue and jurisdiction. In addition, trial courts were directed to dismiss with prejudice the complaint of any plaintiff who did not provide the defendants and the court with information needed to determine venue and jurisdiction. While the case did not prohibit mass or class action asbestos-related lawsuits in Mississippi, it did make clear that plaintiffs who wish to file a consolidated suit must be able to show that they have been affected by all the named defendants under similar or related circumstances. The court's decision resulted in the dismissal of more than 13,000 asbestos claims. The court's findings continue to affect asbestos cases, especially mass tort cases in the state. Those interested in filing lawsuits should know that the statute of limitations for personal injury law in Mississippi is 3 years with a discovery rule that states that this amount of time begins when the problem, in this case the mesothelioma, either was discovered or should have been discovered. Wrongful death cases have the same statute of limitations and follow the same discovery rule. There is no specific statute about asbestos. Thank you for watching. This video was produced by Asbestos.Net, a leading resource on all aspects of asbestos and mesothelioma. Our priority is to inform victims about the devastating effects of asbestos exposure, mesothelioma, asbestos cancer, asbestosis, and other asbestos-related diseases, and to advise them with a wealth of information. Individuals whose lives have been touched by mesothelioma have numerous questions and concerns. Their caregivers and family members also need accurate, reliable information. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with mesothelioma or asbestos cancer and need more information, we invite you to visit and explore the thousands of pages of oncologist-reviewed material on Asbestos.net, to call our convenient toll-free number shown below and speak with a mesothelioma specialist, or to use the simple contact form found at Asbestos.net to request a free copy of our informative books, custom inserts, and DVD. Asbestos.net, information and help for patients and families.